everyone!
Hi!
Welcome to the DL show. I'm Drew.
I'm Leo.
And we have a very exciting episode for y'all today.
Yes, it'll be our first, guest interviewee.
Before that, though, before we really get into who our guest is today, and we're very excited about that, we did want to do our shout out and shine some light on an event that just really passed.
Yes, so we're talking about what happened in Rafah on Monday at the same time as the Met, and there were a lot of bombings that happened in that part of the Middle East. Why it's so bad, or why we want to bring so much attention to it, is because it was described as a safe haven for Palestinians. You know, like Israelian? Is that what Israelite?
Yeah, Israelis.
Israelis.
Yeah, is not real. No,
they promised or said that Rafah was going to be like a safe space for all Palestinians to go. But then on Monday, bombings started happening, and they were targeting children. It's inhumane what's going on, and it's just heartbreaking to talk about it. And it sucks that we have to shout it out.
Yeah.
You know, and not that it sucks that we have to do it. It sucks that we have to bring awareness to it, despite it being such a massive loss for humanity.
100%.
And we wanted to shout out this website, Arab.org. They bundle up a bunch of causes, and every 24 hours you can click to donate. So a click is a donation. You can go do it every 24 hours. They support different causes like children. They help Palestinians, poverty, refugees, women, and the environment too. So it's not just, of course, always help Palestinians and what's going on right now, but a little bit of help for everyone
100%.
too, because it's a tough world right now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We just need positivity. We need help. We need to remind everyone we're humans.
Mm-hmm.
We're a race. We're all together.
Yes.
And it's just. It's so sad.
100%. And I get it. A lot of people want to make comparisons like, oh, we're living in the Hunger Games. And yes, I get that. But at the same time, this is real life. You shouldn't need Hunger Games. You shouldn't need Harry Potter. You shouldn't need fictional media for you to be like, whoa.
To understand that it's bad.
Exactly.
It's bad, period.
It's bad, period. We did want to show
all
that.
eyes on Rafah,
Yes.
and Palestine will be free.
Yeah. Israel is not real.
Not real.
Yeah, period. So now that, we were able to address that, we feel comfortable, and now we want to talk about our guest a little bit before she comes on.
So you may know her. She has 300K followers on Instagram, and throughout her TikToks, she has over 2 million followers. So she's a big deal
She
for
has
us.
reach, 100%.
She's what we strive to become.
Oh, in so many
she's
ways.
Such an inspiration.
Yeah.
She's such a hardworking person. We just want, hopefully, by having her on, some of her positivity, talent, something off of her will rub off here in this, in this couch, and will stay with us because she is such a fighter. I don't know. She's worked where she is, and I don't think another person deserves to have a platform like hers.
I 100% agree. Queen, such an inspiration, I feel, is part of being Mexican American. It's nice to know that a lot of people think you go straight to construction, or you become, if you're a Latina, you just marry a guy who's doing construction, who will probably cheat on you, but give you 14 kids that they expect you to come over. So to have somebody who is Latina, so proud of it, makes content in Spanish and without it. It's really inspiring. I call her the Kim Kardashian of San Diego, because to me, that's how impactful she is, and that's how smart of a businesswoman. Oh, but infinitely better, by the way. What you can say a lot of things about Kim Kardashian, and they're all valid, but one thing you can't take away is she's a good businesswoman. And that's something that's something we should all strive to be. So I think we're ready. And then now our guest,
introducing Gazelle.
And our guest, Gazelle.
Okay, Gazelle.
Gazelle Chavez.
Welcome to the DL show.
Yes. Happy to be here.
We're happy to have you.
So happy, honestly. And thank you so much. We do want to shout out again, we probably wouldn't have made this if not for you. Your words of inspiration, I'll never forget. It was me, Leo, and Eileen after, I think it was my birthday party, I believe, that you had came over, and really, we just got talking, and then we had hung out one more time after, and just hearing your stories and just It was so inspiring. And me, Eileen, and Leo afterwards, like, wow, we need to get on her shit to be on her level.
Yeah, I remember we were in Andrew's
Yeah.
room, and we were just talking, and I was like, and I, like, hearing you talk, I was like, she is the smartest woman I've ever, like, talked to. Because, like, the way you, like, think and the way you move around, it's like your natural thing to do.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
it's like what you're
purposeful,
meant to be
too.
doing.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, it's just, you carry yourself with such purpose and, like, grace. It's, like, it's inspiring.
It
Probably
really is.
okay.
so inspiring.
Like, I'm getting emotional.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
No, because I feel like I always like love to like give. I see like things. You know, I feel like I can see someone and I can see like potential. And then there's some people who have a lot of potential, but like they don't use it. You know.
Yes.
So when you guys told me you guys were gonna do it, I was so happy because I would like to give advice like 2-3 times, and then I'm like, at that point it's manipulation. Maybe I'm kind of telling people to do stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But I knew I was like I just always had like a great film mind, and then when I met Leo, I was like he's just so intellectually smart, and like I don't know, I feel like a lot of people deserve a voice, you know. But we just feel like, you know, like social media is like, it's like hell on earth, but at the same time it brings so much, I don't know, awareness to things, and it helps you change your life. So it's like, it's a cliche world, but it's at the same time, you know, everyone deserves to talk about things.
Exactly.
I'm glad you guys started the podcast because you guys always, they tell me the funniest things, you guys. Like, I always, the stories they tell me, I'm like, I'll be in my house, like, remembering, like, dying.
No, and that's also something is like, our humor's the same, which is kind of rare. Like, it is. It doesn't, like, you have always been there with us, like, joking around, like, that's one thing I love. And I feel like seeing your growth from, because me and Giselle have known each other since junior year of high school. And even then, it was like, who is this hilarious queen? And she wasn't extroverted. Like, I remember it wasn't until we sat together and she talked to me where I'm like, you're insane and hilarious. I love you. Like, oh, and it was, ever since then, you know, it was like an instant connection.
It was. That's such a good way to explain it. I feel like I'm, like, very to myself. Like, if you see me in the street, I'm like I'm to myself, but when you get to know me, like, I'm nice, you know, I'm talkative.
100%.
I have a big personality, but I don't share it to everybody.
Exactly, because it shouldn't
You're
be.
mindful.
Yeah, I'm like,
She was mindful.
She was a big deal.
Exactly. No, 100%. So we like to do something every episode where we talk about a song that we really loved the past week and just wanted to shout out.
Okay.
We'd love to hear yours.
Oh, I was just talking to Leo about it. So right now I'm listening to Anatomy by Kenzie. Have you heard it?
I don't think so. What's it
my
like?
God. Can we play music or no?
I mean, sure. We've never done that before.
Because there's honestly more. She was on Dance Moms. Have you guys ever watched that show?
Oh,
Her
yes.
sister's the one that was in Sia's music video.
Oh, Maddie?
Maddie Ziegler?
That's her sister.
Oh.
So she's basically talking about her. So the song is about her talking about her relationship with her dad and how he's absent. So it's like, I don't know, I always die because it was so deep. I don't know. It's like, oh my God, I like really emotional music.
Oh, it's giving Olivia Rodrigo in the best way.
In the best way.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's a baby.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I was getting real emotional because I heard it on TikTok, and you know, with Mother's Day, I have a really interesting relationship with my mom. So I was like, oh, this song. Like, I really wanted to like sit down with my mom and have a conversation, and this song would have made me do so.
Oh, I love that. I can totally relate to that, having like a unique relationship with my parents, and like I've been wanting to like just sit down and talk about it, but sometimes it's hard.
Yeah,
because,
it's hard.
Not all parents, but some parents don't like to have that because they didn't have it themselves. They never felt like they could talk with their parents. So as kids, when we try and talk to them, they're like, "Oh, that's off," you know.
But that never happened.
Yeah, literally. But okay, we'll be listening.
Yeah.
For me this week, it's a Paramore song, "C'est comme ça." It's like French, I think, but there's one part that I really like. So if I can get just a little personal, I've been dealing with a bit of health issues the past few months, and my doctor told me I have to cut a lot of my old habits, and so I have to eat healthier, work out, stuff like that, which is not fun, right? And I try my hardest, but there's a few times where that feels is staring at me, or that thing I just can't. So this one line that I've been listening to a lot goes, "I know that regression is rarely rewarded. I still need a certain degree of disorder. I hate to admit getting better is boring, but the high cost of chaos, who can afford it?" So that's how I feel, where I'm like, it's boring living a good, healthy life, but the cost of not living it, it's not worth it. So like, that's one thing where I'm like, yes, Andrew, it's not fun working out. Yes, Andrew, it's not fun eating healthier or cutting out some of the vices I used to have because it's bad for me. But, you know, it's for the best. But so that's the song for me where I'm like, this past week I'm like, oh.
For my song, I chose "Forgiveness" by SZA featuring "Old Dirty Bastard." So, I mean, recently, no, not last episode, but the previous episode, I said I lost my job, but now I have a job, and in the same spot where they let me go, but in a different area. Two lines that I like really resonate with the song are "I don't care about consequences, I want my lick back," and then "I might forgive it, I won't forget it," because that's me. Like I don't care. I'll let anything slide, but I'm not. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna forget it.
100%.
You know, that's gonna be when I see my coworkers. Like they're all trying to be fake and nice. Like, hi, how are you? Like, not look. Sorry. Like no. Like don't talk to me. You like no. I'm not gonna forgive it. Like I'm gonna forgive it, but I'm not gonna forget it.
Even the consequences line, because like
I love that line.
You stood your ground.
Oh,
despite the consequences, aka you getting fired, you didn't stand for the BS. So like. Honestly,
yeah, and that's what I love about SZA. Like, I feel like she vocalizes a lot of the things that I feel like sometimes I can't really put into words.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Her pen is crazy.
Oh, her pen? Yeah.
Awesome. So, we have a few questions for you, Giselle. I love to kind of...
pick the brain.
Yeah, exactly. So, earlier you mentioned about, like, influencing, right? Social media, how it's not always the best, but, like, you can make the best out of it. I put here, I wanted to ask, like, what made you really step into this world of being an influencer, making social media, taking that more seriously?
Well, I started posting like videos on my YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, but I haven't posted in a long time. When I started dancing. So when I was a dancer, I feel like I got a lot of confidence. And there was a random day, I had been dancing for like 2-3 months, and my parents didn't know, right? No one knew, only like my best friend and like my sister. And that's her mom knew, and so like I had their support. And I was scared that one day my family was gonna find out. And I'm not a person who I like to live in like fear. I don't like to live in fear. So I like to be more truthful, and then I deal with the consequences up front.
Yeah.
I hate like hiding. It's like
100%.
So one day I just posted a picture at the club on my normal Instagram. This was a long time ago though. And my sister's baby daddy found out. And then she told my sister, and then she told my dad.
I remember
oh my god, it was just like a very like bad time for me. My dad like disowned me for like 2 months. But he came back after, and in that time, I got a lot of confidence because I told myself, I was like, you know what? I know what I'm doing. I know I am doing it. And I think that if my parents really love me, I'm like, even if they don't, I know I'm still loved, but they're not gonna, like, he's not gonna shun me forever. And he did it. And that's when I got confidence to start posting on YouTube. And at that same time, I started growing my Instagram. And then I started on OnlyFans. And then I just kept getting more and more confidence as I kept progressing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? The only difference between me and another person is that I just don't have like the confidence to post. So I was like, I don't really give a fuck. So I just posted, and I just kept posting and posting and posting.
And now we're here.
Yeah, and now we're here.
I love that you mentioned your dad too, because I remember your dad drove us around a couple of times. It's like
super neurotic.
Yeah, and you guys have always had such a cute bond. I've always loved that, especially in high school. I didn't have the best relationship with my dad. So seeing that with y'all, I loved it. Like I remember you and Ox playing Taylor while we were going to go hang out. Like your dad just driving.
Brooklyn baby.
Yeah, exactly, and you're just Mexican dad just driving us. Like I loved it.
It's cute. It just gives like dad that loves his daughter.
Exactly. Dads aren't perfect, and there's sometimes instead of lashing out, they would rather just not interact.
Yeah.
Because then they don't know how to control their emotions. They haven't been taught. Because women are like taught their whole lives to control your emotions, or else. Exactly. So men don't have that. So I feel like that was probably your dad being like, okay, I need to process this. And then would you say your guys' relationship is still good?
It was bad for a while. It was like here and there. And I mean, I moved out when he found out because I knew that it was just going to cause a lot of problems. So my dad's always been very like aggravated. So now, years later, so I started when I was 18. I stopped dancing 2 years ago. But so he started taking antidepressants. So he actually had a lot of like mental problems that we didn't know. And I had a cat. And I'm like I always travel. Like, I always get up and leave. And so I never take care of my pets, you guys. Not that I don't take care of them. I leave them around a lot with family members, So my dad, I left him pet sitting my cat because I trust him more than a hotel.
Yeah.
And I never picked my cat up. But the cat helped my dad so much with his anxiety. And ever since he got the cat and he started being on meds, He's been very calm. So
Oh,
good.
with time, you have to have a lot of patience with your parents because they don't have the resources. Now if you're neurotic now, we're on you can literally go on TikTok and I always say this in Google, why am I neurotic?
Yeah.
They didn't have the same tools. So
100%.
yeah, we have a way better relationship now. But I think that growing up with my dad instead of my mom, and then also that's not my real dad. Did I ever tell you guys that story? That's my stepdad. So my real dad passed away I want to say when I was 16, 17. My mom's cookie's different. So when my mom came to the U.S. whatever, she had my sister. She was pregnant with my sister who's 33, and she met my stepdad here in San Diego. And my stepdad was in love with my mom, and he would tell her to go to the store and buy a bunch of things for my sister. And then I was like, okay, I don't like him, but he buys me things. So I'm like, mood, city girl.
Yeah.
And so she kept dating him. She had my sister, whatever, but she would go back and forth with TJ. And then she figured out, she said that my dad was really, he's always had anger problems. So he's such a really good person. He has a lot of anger problems. And so she was like, I had a really weird relationship with him because he would do everything for me, but he was always throwing it in my face.
Yeah.
And so then my mom had issues with substance abuse later on in her life. And my dad didn't know that she had my stepdad. So she went back to TJ and she wanted to have more kids, but my stepdad couldn't have kids. And she's like, oh, I never got pregnant with him, and he told me later he couldn't have kids. So she got pregnant with my sister's dad, and TJ came back, and then my stepdad saw that she was pregnant, and he was like I hope the baby dies. That's what my mom told me. He said. So my mom didn't have anyone to take care of my sister when I was born.
Did he lie though?
You're right. I'm like, why do I get it? I don't know.
He was so mad at her. And so he still comes. He knew my sister up until 12 years already. I was born when she was 12. And they said that I was born and he was taking care of my sister. And that he was like, can I see the baby? And he was like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. And he just fell in love with me ever since. And I knew that wasn't my dad because my mom told me. She was like, I always told you that wasn't your dad because I didn't want you to think that was your dad. But I never felt a connection with my real dad. I met him a couple times, but my dad has done everything for me. He bought me my first car. He bought me my first bra. He goes beyond. He would take me food to school, and he's not even my. So I feel as a person who's semi-adopted, when someone that's not your blood loves you, you just feel so motivated because you're just I don't know. It's so sentimental, but it's I don't know. A lot of people have really bad parents, and I feel I got blessed. That's not even my real parent, but. He does everything for me. So even though people are like, oh, why do you OnlyFans? You don't have a dad. I'm like, I do have a dad. I'm like, and that's why I do it because I make a lot of money.
Yeah,
stupid reasoning.
Yeah.
And my dad never disowned me for it. He always was like, oh, are you gonna go to school? But I feel my passion's film. I like to make videos, and I do all kinds of videos.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of why I feel I got my motivation from. Because me and my mom don't have the best relationship. Also because of the substance abuse. Yeah. But my dad he never told me to talk to my mom. He was always like, your mom's interesting, but that's your mother. So, yeah. I don't know. I feel that's why I always try to talk about, how I want to adopt kids. Because, I don't know. My dad could never have kids, and he's a really good dad. I think he was just born to be a father,
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, has there ever been, a moment where you wanted to give up? Or, where you thought you would almost give up?
Yeah. So, social media or
social media. No.
Me thinking that too.
But no, more in your social media. Growing your platform.
Yeah, I feel there's been a couple, more than a couple, a lot of moments. But I feel the important thing is to just we're young right now. I always think I'm if I was 50, I would be okay, it's time to hit the road. But since I'm young, I'm until I'm 30, I always say I don't have kids for a reason. So I always want to be a mother one day, whether I adopt or whatever. So whenever I feel giving up, I'm when I tell my kids my story, I'm going to be yeah, and then I was here, and then I won't give up. And then, I want to have a really long story. Yeah. And I want to do the things I want to do. So I try not to give up for that reason.
Yeah. I love that.
I want to have a crazy story. I'm no, I gave up, and then I got pregnant, and then I worked a regular job, and I never chased my dreams. Oh, that would make me want to kill myself. So that's why I try to just think about that when I think about it.
I like that you still have the goal of being a mom, because I feel especially nowadays, it's kind of almost seen like detrimental for a woman to want to be a housewife, But no, that shouldn't be the only deciding factor. I love that you're oh, if I don't have kids, but because you'll eventually have them, but you want to focus on you said, building your story first, and it's really inspiring. I know I feel we're saying inspiring a lot, but that's just when you meet a person that is inspirational. You know, like
Call it out.
call it out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One thing I hate too is like people love to say like, oh, you're gonna, especially if you do content like OF or oh, your kids. I'm like, Northwest doesn't care. You think Northwest cares? You think any of those kids care that their mom had to take? Like, no, it's only incels, like mad bros and pick me girls who care, who to bring that up. Or if a kid is being bullied at school, he's not bullying himself, it's because other kids. And so that's one thing I hate too, is like people think because you choose to do a certain thing, that means you should be banned from living a certain life. It's like, no, like it does not matter.
And I feel like for me, if anything, like people like that, it stems out of jealousy too.
Oh,
because like, do you really think people wouldn't want to have like, you know, like your lifestyle? Come on, it's such a neat, like, you just go through life, you know, enjoying it. And I feel like I see it more that way. It's just jealousy, and they can't have it. You know?
Oh yeah, that's why men will never say any of those things to a male OF creator. They're not gonna be like, oh, your kids are gonna be both. Like, nobody says that to them. I don't ever see those. That also goes to something I feel is that like straight men in general, but honestly straight men live and die for the validation of other men. And that comes from putting down women. Like, there's nothing that will get them more likes and more comments than saying bop or saying like or bop is, it's like an it originates, it's like AAV.
Because I thought it was like a bop, you know, the song.
Yeah, so that's kind of like how we were grown up on it, you know, like
what a bop.
or like a head bop, you know, but like bop now is just a new way of saying like thought or like it. Yeah, so most of the time kids don't even know. They run with it. Like, I'll never let TikTok teenagers go with the fact that they thought "got" meant big ass when it's supposed to be like "goddamn" when you see a big ass, and now that they call anything "got." I'm like, you guys are so cringy. Like, this is who's calling females bops, thoughts. Like, it's all teenage boys who don't even know anything. So it's very inspiring that you already know how you want to live your life. A lot of people wish they had that control. A lot of them wish. You know how many men wish they could sell their nanny for some cash so they don't have to do anything? Like,
a lot.
I know.
A lot. And they're mad they can't. You should. But they're mad that they can't. So kudos to you. I have kind of something here. So how has being an influencer affected your personal life? Like dating, friends, family? Like, do you prefer it when they're more involved with the influencer life, or do you prefer it when it's kind of detached?
I would say like my family, I don't really like him. You know, my dad's like older. He doesn't speak English. He doesn't even like have Facebook, so I don't really have to involve him. Yeah. So I don't even think he would want to be involved. My mom, she's helped me here and there. She's funny, so she's helped me do some skits in Mexico. She's helped me. I probably could involve my mom, but she's also really shy. And like, you know, when I deal with my parents and my family, sometimes I realize like I used to always think like everyone had the same personality as me. I'm like, what do you mean you can't be on camera right now? Like, what do you mean? But some people just, it's weird for them. It's not something they want to do. Yeah. So, you know, my niece, she's a little bit younger. She helps me sometimes. I'll include her in my videos. But, you know, if they want to be in them, and I would love for them. But I try not to put things on people either because I know not everyone wants to do it. And I've dated, like my dating history. You know, the influencing or like being on TikTok or whatever hasn't caused me issues. The OnlyFans has caused me a lot of issues, and like dancing has caused me a lot of issues. Dating, and I've had like I used to think I dated a lot, but I had a lot of like flings. That's what I had. But I didn't have a lot of relationships after I started dancing. I had maybe like one or two. Yeah, and that's it. And then now I'm in a relationship now, actually currently. But I've dated people who are on social media. I've dated people who, you know, do music. I've dated like a lot of different people, and I feel like being on social media, it's kind of like having like a big butt, honestly. Like because, and this goes for guys too. It's kind of like having a big dick. If you're on social media and other people like you, as humans, I feel like we have a lot of like mob mentality. And if a lot of people want you, suddenly a lot of people want you, even if, you know. And I've dated guys that a lot of people want, and they're shitty ass people in person, you know. And it goes for me too. Like, I don't think I'm the hottest or the whatever, but when I started to have more like following or TikTok, then I started becoming more careful about the people I involved myself with, because then they knew too much about me, and I forgot that I was being perceived. I always have that issue, you know. I'm like, oh, like I would go on dates with them, and then they would tell me like, oh, when you did this, I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, I don't like people knowing things about me,
Mhm.
so it's hard. That's hard for me.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm such like a private person still, so I don't get scared because I kind of just deal with guys as I go, and then But I'm like, you don't really know me. I'm like, just because you saw some clips about me online, skits that I edited to my liking, you don't know me, babe.
Ooh, exactly that.
And I like to always say that when you see someone online, you don't know that person. You don't know that person until you know them. And I feel like some people always forget that. So I keep that to myself, and I'm like, even if I post videos and people have this narrative about me, you don't know me though. So.
Oh my gosh, as I love one of the funniest things I always like to do is read your comments because people have the wildest assumptions. They just say all this stuff, and I'm like, you don't know her. Like, you don't know her. Why are you guys saying it? It cracks me up because I know you.
Yeah.
Like, I remember like people be like, oh, she liked it for it. I'm like, you don't know her. What are you even saying? It cracks me up. So I just wanted to know if like that was ever an issue, that people thought they knew you just because of social media and then the real you. But that's so interesting.
How do you balance that though? Like because I feel like I'm also a really private person, but like that's not what scares me, but it's kind of like something that holds me back. Is like I don't want people, like you said, to perceive me. You know, like of course I'm doing a podcast and doing all this, but I like people knowing me through what I give them. You know, like you said, you don't know me. You just know what I'm presenting because like I'm in charge of it. But like, do you ever feel like you have to be like mindful of like the people you like? If someone talks to you, do you think they come with like alternative motives? Because that's my thing. I feel like whenever I talk to like guys, like it's not really heartfelt. It's more like, oh, like it's. I mean, it's because I can't. Well,
like you're that person. Right?
Yeah, it's because like mainly because like my Twitter. Like if I don't know if they're just doing it because like it's me, or is it because I have somewhat of a following on Twitter. That like you want to be with me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like star fuckery. Like you only, there's certain people who literally like would not look at you on any other day.
Yeah.
Will talk bad about what you represent or who you are, but because they see you have a following, no matter how big, no matter how small, they're just like, oh, that's hot. Like that's the most attractive part. Like, do you ever feel like you've talked to people who were more attracted to your fame than to you?
Yeah, I have. Like I feel like I have like a lot of issues with karma. That's why like when I am a bitch to people, when I do something bad, I go into a spiral, like a literal mental spiral. Because I'm those people that if I do something bad to someone, I will get karma instantly. So, and before I was on social media, I used to be in a relationship for like literally 100 years, and I thought I was gonna be with this person for the rest of my life. Did I ever tell you that story? Like, I used to work at Hooters. Like, I was always a little bit, I've always been very sexually free, but I like to be sexually free in my own space,
Yes.
And I wanted to dance, and that person that I dated didn't want me to. And I always felt like even though I'm a big lover, and I love being in love, and like, I'm very a relationship, I really love myself too. Even though like I struggle with like my confidence, I love myself, and I always want to look back, and I don't want to be like that person that's like, oh, this man ruined my life. Like it makes me sad to think about that. So I like to be in my femininity, and when I started dating people, and I left that person because I don't really know how to be in a relationship. I don't know. I feel like I'm a person, and that's not. I try to be like, am I being cocky? Because I have some narcissistic qualities. I know, like I want to be like narkish, but like my energy is very high, and I didn't know this until I grew up and I started meeting other people. And I'm like, oh wow, people don't really always have the highest energy. And so the guys that I've dated, a lot of them, like I feel like they just want to be around me to just soak my energy up and take it.
Literally energy vampires.
Right? And I didn't know this until I got older because I had only really been in that relationship. And once I started to, I really focused on myself for like my early, like 18, 19, like just getting my following up, buying my car, like buying things I wanted. And then when I finally started dating again, I realized that now that I had a following, I had a lot of people that wanted to talk to me. And I had I'm a very deep person. Like I'm very forgiving. Like any conversation with me will get deep.
Oh, yes.
Because I can take it there. So I don't date guys that don't get deep with me, and as soon as I feel like a guy only wants me for something physical, my emotions don't get entangled.
Yeah.
And I always I think because I was on OnlyFans and I was on social media, I never wanted a guy to make me feel like I wasn't relationship worthy. And I was in a situation with a man who was 10 years older than me for a long time, he was very successful, and I was a dancer, and he didn't want me to be a dancer, but he loved being with me. We were on and off for a lot of years, and he taught me a lot of things, about music, about being an adult, because he was older than me, and that's when I learned, I had a podcast, and I started one, and then I told him, oh my god, you should start one, and he started it, and I was, so proud of him, and, we shared a lot of the same aspirations, but he was just in a different place in his life, but we were such good friends, I'm even, to after we talked about when we broke up, we're good friends. He has kids, it's a totally different life than me, but he, really liked my passion, and we enjoyed that together, and that's when I realized, the thing that I liked about the guys I dated is passion.
Yes.
So I date guys with passion, and I'm obviously not gonna date bum loser who uses me either, but I stopped as I started growing up. I started dating guys not all the time for their money, because I used to do that when I was a dancer, because that's what dancing's about. You just take money from men, and I thought that's all I should look for. And then I was like, no, I'm going to date someone who's passionate. And I've always just done that, whether they do social media, whether they do something else, just people who are passionate for life. Because I'm passionate, and I hate being with people that are Debbie Downers or low energy. So whenever that starts to happen to me, that I feel because it's happened to me, I've gone on a couple of dates where they're just telling me too much information about myself, that's such a turn off for me. I'll never go out with you again, I'll block you. And I like people to work for me, and I like people to like me past my body, past that. People that are actually interested to get to know me.
Oh, I love that. Especially what you talked about is passion. Is passion doesn't mean money hungry or money. It just means you have to care about something a lot. Because that's one thing also on my end is it's hard to find guys passionate about things nowadays. They just float through the wind. I'm
no brain cells.
No, at all. And I'm just oh, what do you want to do? I don't know. Or what do you like to do? I'm what? What? I don't get it. So I'm with you. So I kind of wanted to ask a little off influencing and more to do with DL. This is the DL show. So I kind of want to start before all that is, what has been your relationship with queer, gayness? Were you always surrounded by it, or were you always such an ally, or was it you were taught certain things, and then what kind of made you switch? I just would like to know.
Well, when I was in high school, you guys know my best friend Sarah, her and my friend Diana, we had this huge group, and we were all friends, and when there was 2 gays in it, and then a couple other friends, and we just kind of stopped hanging out with them, and as we grew older, it was just me, Sarah, and Diana. It's always really just been us 3. We've been friends now for 10 plus years, and we've always had our gay friends, but then when we grew up, when we got older, we didn't have any more. I mean, when I met you guys, but I was separately, right? But I always because they were so funny, and rest in peace, I still have this friend named Brian. He had the best music taste ever. He actually had an overdose. I didn't talk to him the time that he passed away, but he was so funny, and I always wished I would have talked to him more before he passed away, but he was hilarious. I met him when we were 13, and he was he loved drag. He literally knew all the Lana songs. He was so iconic. I feel aside from just being gay is probably very difficult, and I feel they just have so much charisma, and they're just icons on culture, and I feel if you want to know about culture, get a gay friend. They know everything. So I've always been open to it. My dad's very homophobic. He's always been very homophobic. He's the type to make comments on the street, but I never felt like that, because I was just because he's my dad, I don't have to have the same ideals. I've always been very
100%.
open, and I would tell him, one day someone's gonna punch you, and I'm not gonna defend you. I've always my dad's always marriage, and I'm I don't really go for him. I love my dad, but I'm not gonna have her ideals just because I love you.
Exactly.
So I've always been really open. My mom has a lot of gay friends, and I think that's why too. I'm I really don't care. They're funny. I don't give a fuck.
Period. So continuing on with gayness, have you ever felt DL men? We talked about it. Men on the low. Have you ever felt you've been around that? Even if you're not dating them, but have you ever been around a guy where you're giving DL and what were some of those flags that you feel?
Yes, I feel me and my friends always talk about it. We're for sure we've all dated someone who's DL. We all have. I feel since I grew up with my dad, and I used to tell my best friends, I think my dad is gay. I used to think he was gay because he never had a girlfriend. I never saw him with a woman for I don't know, my whole life. So that's 23 years.
Wow.
Now recently he has a little bae, kind of. I don't know. But took him 21 years to be with the woman. So, and I never saw a mother and a father. I never saw that. So I've always grew up very singular. And I started to think that my dad might be gay because he was very feminine. He would cook me food every day, lunch, dinner, like, you know, wash my clothes, like just. But you know, that just because a man's feminine doesn't mean he's gay.
For sure. I will say though, a Mexican man not having an SO, that is crazy.
Isn't
because
that crazy?
Mexican men will, as long as they have somebody, they'll date anything, and not just one. They'll date like 4 other people at the same time. So for him not to have that is like.
I was like, but I think it's just that my dad's such like a later I thought about it. It's because he's just such a dedicated parent that he was like, if I bring a woman, he had in the past I was telling Leo when I was a baby, and they like treated me bad. And he didn't want to explain that I wasn't his daughter and like that my mom was on drugs and like now I'm taking. He didn't want to explain that, so he just never, because he didn't want to bring more problems. And he's like, she's already like, he always told me, he's like, I always try to protect you because I know like you've already had a bad life, so or not bad life, childhood.
Yeah.
So that would have been too much for him to deal with.
Yeah.
So growing up with a man who was in his feminine, I struggled to find like. I dealt with a lot of men that were like very interesting, but I feel like I did a lot of masculine men besides the fact that I'm in my masculine too.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like I've dated a lot of masculine men, but I feel like when it's a deal, you know, undercover, is when they have, did a video on TikTok, inspired by you guys actually, like how do you know if you're man's deal, is if he's just cares too much about women's, like he complains too much about what women do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one thing if the man's like our parents, 50 plus, they have the craziest ideals, so they may or may not be gay. I don't know. But if you're young and you're in the 21st century and you're on social media, you're young, a millennial, and you're making comments about like, oh, she wears so much makeup, like, oh, she's dressed like. You're really weird. You probably don't like women because you
want to be a woman.
Yeah, if they're next to you, they probably see 2 bad bitches.
Yeah.
Because like that's one thing I hate about like. Men that you can tell like, why are you competing with women? Like they're like want to put you down so they could feel like the bad bitch. I'm like, you're a man.
Yeah.
A grown man, cock and balls. Don't forget.
Nope. Or if they don't compliment you, like things like that, or if they feel uncomfortable around like gay guys, I feel like that's because you know, my boyfriend, he's a barber and he has a lot of clients that are gay, and he has like a bunch of conversations with him. He tells me all the time.
Aww.
So I feel like to me that's like makes me feel like he's more masculine than if he's like, oh, I fucking hate like.
Yeah. Because I feel like it just sounds he's secure in his sexuality.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, because men who are, they won't like they're not gonna let having a conversation define their sexuality, you know? And I feel like that just also stems from a lot of internalized, like, homophobia.
Yeah.
You know, they can't accept themselves, so they're like, oh, I'm not going to accept them, you know? So it's just built up rage. But it's so nice to hear that, like, you've been surrounded with, like, positive masculinity in a way. Because, like Andrew said, Mexican men, you know, they're stubborn or like machos, you know, like 30 wives and 50,000 kids.
Yeah.
But like hearing the way you talk about your dad, it's like, wow, like, you know, he is a committed parent, but also it's just security in himself, you know. And I feel like that just like imbued it into you, and I feel like that's why you're like a really, you know what you want because you've seen what you've had, you know. And why would you settle for less if you've already been with your dad, you know, who, like you said, like cook for you, and like you already know what a good man is.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that because it's giving that your dad played the role of both the dad and the mom, which
it's very rare.
It is rare. I was gonna say, same thing. I've talked about it. My mom struggled with substance abuse. I had to live with my dad, which is a lot of. I'll never forget the first time a guy and I got clocked. It must have been middle school, like freshman year or something, and they were like, "Oh, your mom's like kind of crazy, huh?" And I never really talked to my mom like, "Oh, how do you know?" I'm like, "Well, because you live with your dad." And like that's really rare because the court systems favor the women. You know, 9 times out of 10, if there's a custody split, you're going with your mom.
Yeah.
And so to be living with your dad, that must have been, it was something a little off. And so my dad, I love him. He was definitely the role of the provider. He was definitely my father, right? But I can't say I felt mom energy. You know, I can't say that I felt comforted or felt like, like he was just the dad. And so it is rare especially a dad. It's not rare for a mom to have to be both the mom and the dad, right? But it is rare for a dad who's going to be both the dad and the mom.
Especially in our Latino culture, you know?
100%.
Exactly. And my dad still was that, like, macho. I still have I have a lot of trauma also from growing up with my dad because I'm so, I mean, he's on antidepressants now. I mean, so he had a lot of like codependency issues. And since he had given up all his life for me, my older sister had her kids when she was young, and so they never wanted me to leave the house because they're like, well, you know, like God's gonna worry about you, whatever. But instead of me internalizing it, and you know, I didn't want to. There's this thing that's called emotional incest.
Oh, and yes.
So I didn't want it to become that me and my dad were like, because me and my best friend started talking about this all the time, because that's why we actually connect a lot too. She grew up with her mom, and I grew up with only my dad. And I have a sister, but she's older, so we are like sisters, you know. And we grew up together, and you can have emotional incest when a parent, you're only with your parent. It would just me and my dad for the long. I mean, dad on holidays would just be like me and my dad, and then I could choose to go with my mom if I wanted to, you know.
Yeah.
It was like very like a lot of like solitude between me and him. And I had to make a decision. I think when I started dancing, that's when I drew a gap between. I still hang out with him, but I was like, sometimes too much of something is bad.
Yeah,
you know.
100%.
So I live on my own. I've lived on my own for a long time. I see my dad sometimes, and now that he's older, I was like, he's gonna have his mental problems, his emotional issues, and I need to be strong enough to not put that on me. You know, because it was such a weight that I would carry. And since I had such a rough childhood, I was like, I'm not going to let you guys do that to me in my adulthood. You guys are not going to do that. So I started going to therapy, and that's kind of when I learned. And when I tell my story, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like a poor girl. That's why I wouldn't share it a lot, because I don't want people to feel bad for me.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, my life is my responsibility now as an adult. So, yeah, he for sure had a lot of issues, but I think I learned with him that it was like a man can do things he doesn't want to do.
Yeah. I like that you said emotional incest, because I feel like the most common of that is usually like men and their moms.
Oh, brother.
Oh, brother. They're like, oh, like anytime the son's dating a girl, they're like, oh, like he's my man first. I'm like, ew. Like what? Like you wanna fuck him? Like what? It's so gross, so weird.
Yeah.
And that's one thing is like people need boundaries with their parents, like, or else it becomes that like. I hate that so many girls and women have their first op when dating their husband, man, boyfriend is the mom. Like, let's denormalize that, because I hate that that's such a thing. Like, it's gross.
I've dated like both people who have that and people who don't have that, and I feel like, and that's why as now that we're the new generation, and if we have children, if you have sons, like, I'm sorry, you need to, that's not your husband. Like,
No.
I've seen that because I've had a date. I date a lot of Mexican guys. I pretty much have dated only Mexican guys. And sometimes it'll be like their mom calling them and asking them to do things that you should be asking your husband. And they put that on the sons. And then they're not going to be able to live a life. You know, I learned that from my dad, because my dad, I'm always telling you, his parents were in Mexico. And he would visit them here and there, but he wanted to make his life here in San Diego, and he didn't talk to them that much. So, you know, I was like, always coming out, I'm like, well, you did that to your mom, so if I get mad at you, yeah. Okay, you know, whatever. Like, don't ignore me forever. Yeah. So I've always been very good at putting a distance between my parents and me, because I'm like, you're not about to, like, control my whole life, or we don't owe our parents anything. That's the thing. But as Mexicans, we feel like we do. And, I mean, we should. I mean, they came to this country, but you don't owe them anything. They chose to have you. They chose to bring you to this world. Yep. And, you know, if you want to live your life how you want to live it, you should. And I feel like a lot of men should. I've dated people where, like, the mom's calling them, like, every fucking 5 seconds, telling them things. It's like, I'm sorry, but, like, he's an adult. You shouldn't be calling him every 5 seconds for a problem. It's gross.
Exactly.
But, you know, you can't tell them that, because I think it's hard for men to see, because my mom.
Yeah.
Like, okay, whatever. Well, your mom's not.
Yeah.
Get it together, because not everyone's going to deal with it. Yeah.
Going back to what you said about, like, Mexican guilt, I feel like a lot of, like, I guess I'll just generalize. I feel like a lot of Mexican kids feel, like, guilt in leaving their parents behind. Because, like you said, they throw it in your face, like, oh, like, because of me, you're here, like, I give it to you. But, like, I feel like it's so smart of you to, like, distance. It was so smart of you to distance yourself so early on, because it's a really, like, it's a trap that it's really, really hard to, like, escape. Because that guilt you feel, it shouldn't be something that, like, should hold us back, but in a way it does. Because, you know, you're like, oh, like, it's my family, like my parents, you know, how am I going to leave them behind? But, like, you need to leave them behind to do your own life. Because if not, you're never You're never gonna do it. And I mean, look at you now. Like, you're living your life how you want to, how you want it to. Like, it's really, like, inspiring.
Yeah. And not for nothing, like, you can have it both ways. People think that once you put your foot down with your parents, they're never going to talk to you again. But, like, no, they're just not used to it. Because Mexicans have never been told no with their own family.
Yes.
So, like, it might hurt them. It might surprise them at first. But they'll come around. Same with your dad. You know, he didn't talk to you for a few months. But now you came around, and now you have a healthier relationship. That's on your terms.
And even he's healthier now, you know, antidepressants.
Oh, yeah, that's
so
what that
it's like, it may seem bad at first, but it'll get better, you know?
Yeah, I even had to put boundaries on my sister. I had blocked her many times because she just starts going off. And, like, I don't like my family going off on me because I'm like I don't want people telling me any commentary. Once people start telling me too many things about my life, I'm like, please shut the fuck up. Like, I don't know. I feel like I don't like to be rude, but it's just like I have so much going on in my head. You know, I shared recently about my BPD. I've struggled with like depression. Like, I don't know. I have like so many things. I'm like, whatever, like ADHD. So my parents telling me things is just like the last thing I need on my brain right now, or like going on. So yeah, whenever I need it, I know I hang out with my sister when I want to. I don't. You know, we don't get along like that. And it was very difficult for me to accept. I'm like, oh my god, everyone has just beautiful relationship with their family members. Like, even like when I'm talking to my boyfriend, he stayed close with his cousins and like everyone. And I don't really have any family members, but like my close family that I really, and sometimes I get on with them, sometimes I don't. But you know, I always think that God and like the universe and the higher power gives you the tools that they think you need, and they don't give you the ones that you don't need, so you can find them yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and I have really close friends, and I feel like, you know, God gave me some of the bestest friends ever because my family fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And some people have horrible fucking friends, you know? So I always, when I feel sad, I try to get positive about it.
Good way.
Yeah, that is a good way. But so it's so interesting that you're right. Like, some people could have crappy friends, but have like the best family relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I feel like we all come with a purpose, and that's why we have our people. You know, you choose your family at the end of the day when you're an adult.
1,000,000,000%.
Mm-hmm.
And your chosen family sometimes ends up being better than your actual family.
Exactly.
Because you even said it. Like, one thing about like my family is like nags, and I'm like, I have 1,000,000,000 different things going through my head at any moment. Like, I don't need, or if I messed up, I don't need you guys to all tell your input on how I messed up. Like, literally. I know it. I'm living it right now. Like, nothing will get on my nerves more than my family telling me stuff I already know. We go. We're good. You're not making it better. You're making me want to do it less, honestly.
Yeah, that's why I hate saying like things to my family. Because like I like being private, even with like this, because I don't need your guys' input. You know, at the end of the day, I'm doing it for me, and like I'm glad you guys are aware of it. But you know, I don't like boundaries, exactly. Because sometimes like you guys said, your family ends up bringing you down more than other people. And why would I want that negativity? You know?
One time I remember is like it was the day before an AP test in high school, right? When those were like the scariest things ever. Like, oh my god, like, right? And I got into the biggest, most hugest fight with my dad. Like, to this day, we've never gotten it that bad. And like, I tanked the AP exam because it was just like, and that's the thing, I already have so many things going on, like family drama, like, just doesn't help at all. To the point where I'm like, I don't even want to tell you guys stuff if it's going to be thrown in my face, right?
Exactly.
Even like this podcast, I've sometimes had issues with some family members who feel a certain way about stuff I've said, and I'm like, listen, like, if you're going to come into my world, it's going to be on my terms. If you want to do your terms, don't bother. But
don't come in.
Exactly, but come in and I'm going to love you because you're my family, but come in knowing it's my terms.
Yeah, that's how you know, like, my parents don't speak English. My mom sometimes will send me, like, TikToks that I make here and there. My dad doesn't even know. He was shocked. My niece told him that I had, like, when I hit 1 million on TikTok, he's like, he doesn't even know what TikTok is. You know? So, like, for me, that helped me a lot into not let their opinions. My dad's always telling me, like, why don't you go to school? Like, become a dental that one. Because I'm like, my dad came from like dirt poor. He told me they would drink water with sugar because they didn't have milk. Like, so I try to put that into perspective that I'm at my house door dashing. You know, when I think about what he's telling, his world is small because that's what he knows. He didn't go to even middle school. He taught himself how to read and write. So to me, it's like the fact that he raised me and I'm where I am is already enough for me. So I try not to like, he's a little man,
Yeah.
If you think about it that way, you don't get mad at your parents. Like, my mom, too, sometimes you feel really angry with her. I have more of, like, a interesting relationship. But my mom tells me the weirdest things sometimes. But I'm always like, she has substance abuse. Also didn't go to school. Like, didn't even go to, I think, elementary. So it's like, yeah, what kind of advice can I expect from these people? Not to be mean, but it's important to see your parents as adults and not like my mom and my dad.
Ooh, that's a word right there.
Because I've had, it's like, I always talk about, like, if my parents tell me opinion, I'm not going to take it, like, it's fact, just because it's my mom and my daddy. No, they had their life, that worked for them. This is me. Like, I'm not going to take what you say as fact.
Oh. And I feel like a lot of, like, parents, they try to navigate the new world with their old mentality. Like that thing of, like, pushing you to go to school, education, but nowadays a degree is not going to get you far.
No.
Like, we've seen how, like, the state of the job market, like, you can have a bachelor's, a master's, and you're still going to be working at Dunkin', that's the reality of the world. And maybe back then, when, like you said, when it was the 19 whatever, like 80s, back there, like, it makes sense to want to do school, but, like, now in the modern world, like, social media is where, like, money is.
It's the future.
It's the future.
Exactly.
I work in HIV testing, and social media plays a part. It's everything. I also love that talking about, like, they're old school into the new world. I think of you, Leo, and you talked about how your mom was like, this is why I told you not to say anything. And it's like, to the point where, like, again, that's old school mentality. You just take it, but you have a job, and to them, that's what matters most, and I understand that. But nowadays, we have to prioritize our self-worth because corporations and capitalism has made everybody think you're nothing.
Exactly.
And so you have to advocate for yourself. Even if it means loss of job, you just can't be a cog in the machine.
And like you said, we're young, we have the future ahead of us. It's not like, of course, like, there's people at work that, like, have been there for, like, 30 plus years. And I get it, work your ass off, but do you not want to enjoy your life? Because, like, you're going to keep working, and where's all that money going to go?
No.
To the government?
Exactly. Yeah, you work your ass off to go paycheck to paycheck because your bosses are making all the money.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I'm so, like, that's exactly why I think everybody who has ever said anything negative about OF is jealous. Because you wish you could be your own boss.
Yeah.
You wish you could just make money at home. You wish, and you're mad that you have to get up at whatever time you do and work. I'm mad, but I'm not jealous, and I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to hate on the person for it. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
But, yeah.
Yeah, and then, what's it called? So, when I started dancing, actually, I still had a job. I worked at a restaurant, and me and my best friend, Sarah, we worked at the same restaurant but different locations. And me and her mom were like this. So, her mom she's already at work, and and I'm also going to work, right? And I got my period, I remember, and I was running late. You have to wear white, and then I had to go back and get past. I was like, and I'm always running late. So I was already running late. And I was like, so I clocked in like 20 minutes late, and then the manager's like, you're gonna have to clock in another 30 minutes, like, you're gonna miss the whole hour. And I was in my car, and I was already dancing, and I hated dancing the first week of it. I was like, this is way too much for me. But that day at work, I was fucking pissed that they made me go back. And the one time I worked, I think the lowest I had made was like 500, and I only worked for like 3 hours. And I was like, and here I don't even make half of that. And this is like 2019. And I was like, actually, I'm not going to go back. So I drove back, and I went to Sarah's house, and her mom was there. And she was like, should we go get lunch? And I was like, let's go visit Sarah. We go, Sarah's like serving, and she's like, are you supposed to be at work? I was like, honey, I'm not going back. And then she's like, and that day she never went back either. And we were scared to just dance because, you don't want to rely that as your only job. But it gave me so much confidence. And then when I was dancing, I thought I would never stop dancing because I was addicted to the fast money.
Yeah.
And then I used to always tell Sarah, I was like, dude, I fucking hate dancing. I was like, I hope I get in trouble so I don't have to come back. And I have a very powerful tongue. Like I'm saying, like, karma is insane. I don't know why, but I kept saying it. What happened? I got in trouble. And they told me I couldn't go back for 3 months. And I mean, if someone doesn't work for 3 months, it's very, like, in the real world, that's a lot of time. But I had a lot of money saved up, so I was just living on my savings, and then I had my OF. And then I go back, and I got surgery, and I had to be, it was a big surgery. I couldn't go for a long time. When I go, they're like, you can't come back. like, actually, you have to reapply. And I didn't want to because I've been here for years. I've worked my ass off for this fucking club.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to do that. And I was in a really dark period. That was a time where I was, like, thinking of getting a real job. That's when you're saying that if I ever give up. Well, that was more when I danced. So I was like, and I already did social media, but I didn't take it too seriously because I didn't have to because I would dance. And I made a good living dancing.
Yeah.
So I was going back and forth. I stopped dancing, and then I would dance sometimes in Vegas, which, oh my god, if you dance in Vegas, the men in Vegas, just like, they're, oh my god, it's like, it's like asshole central. So, like, I couldn't deal with dancing in Vegas either, and I was really in a new low. And that's when I discovered psychedelics. I haven't done shrooms in a long time, but I had a shroom trip. I remember I was telling you, and I was watching a Jim Carrey film on Netflix, tripping. I always trip on myself. I'm such a weirdo. Like, I like to go deep into my, like, thoughts alone. And I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. Like, I think I'm not good at anything at this point, you know? And I already had followers on TikTok, but it was just, like, me having fun. Like, it wasn't me taking it seriously. And then I was watching the Jim Carrey thing, and it was like, you know what? Maybe I'm just very passionate about film. And me and Andrew had the same elective, drama, because my sister told me to take drama because I always wanted to be a movie director. That was my dream job, like, from 9 years old. And I was like, what should I do? What should I do? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to really try on my TikTok for, like, 1 month. And if I don't do well, I'm just going to, I don't know, maybe I will have to go to school. And then I tried for 1 month, and the money that I made dancing was, like, more than what I made. And so I beat my numbers dancing on OnlyFans because I had gained so many followers on TikTok. And that year I had 300K, and by the end of the year I had 1 million. So I knew that was God and the universe telling me, like, do not work.
Yeah.
Do not know that I shouldn't work, but I think I'm more creative, like, when I'm in my own space and have my own time. And now that I only do OnlyFans and social media. When I had to go dancing, even then I felt restricted because I had to get ready in the night. And I always tell my friends, and, you know, I'm like, when you really sit in your home and you're alone in your space, you get to tap into that creativity. And that's why I always talk about how it's fine if your dream is to go to school. That's beautiful. You should do that. But don't hate on people who don't want to go to school and they want to sell their art. Or, I don't know, I love people who sell their art, like, do little things like that, or start their own business of anything, because, I don't know, corporations hold all the money. That's why the rich get richer. So, I don't know. I don't understand why people are so, like, strung up on that idea. And I'm glad that social media is making, like, life easier for people. That's what it's supposed to do. Make life easier so we can sit and invent things and be creative, not so we can slave around. Like, you know? It's absurd how people don't get it, though.
It's the new frontier.
Yeah.
Like, it's not space anymore. No one cares. It's not water. It's scary. Yeah. Like, literally the internet is where everybody's trying to tap into. They want to be the next thing through the internet. And I like how you said, like, so I went to SDSU. I went for, like, 4 years. And I eventually withdrew. I never even officially withdrew. I just didn't sign up. I just stopped going to my classes and I didn't sign up for the next semester.
When I didn't go to AP testing.
And I took a break. This was during COVID. So I was like, I'm not going to do online classes. And then they came back in person. I'm like, I'm not going back in person. So I never went back. And then I took some time. During that time, I was working a full-time job. I had moved out. And so for that was my reasoning. I'm like, I don't need to go back, right? I got the job that school is supposed to get you to. So at that point, there was no point. And then I took 1 semester at City College. And again, like, it got to a point where I'm like, I'm not showing up anymore. Like, school isn't for me. And I used to love school, but it just kind of got crushed away. And, like, I'm a creative person. I want to do film. And it gets to a point where I'm like, I don't need to suffer through general electives to do what I want to do. It kills my creativity versus uplifting it. And so I agree with you. And it is old school. All my family to this day, I'm like, this is me announcing I'm not going back. But they're always like, so when are you going? Or like, how's class? Or, you know, when are you going back? I'm like, yeah, like, literally. But so yeah, I agree with you. And I feel like I also get it. I am such a big advocate for my siblings to go to school, though. Because I think it's a good tool to have. Critical thinking, being around new people. Like, I say, go try college, you know? If it's not for you, then it's not for you. But go try it. Don't just give up on it.
Yeah. But, yeah. I feel like, and then you learn how to be, like, disciplined when you go to school. Because I went to City College, too, when I was 17 for a month. And then I remember I had to do a presentation. I was like, oh, I'm sick. And I was actually, I never went back. But, you know, school, we had class together when we was in high school. School was never that difficult for me. I feel like I would always half-ass everything and I would do okay, you know? So, yeah, it's not difficult. I always think, like, people always say, like, oh, if they don't go to, like, they're dumb, whatever. I feel like some of the smartest people I've known don't go to college and school. I think if you're gonna do something like you want to be a lawyer, doctor, we need those. Engineering, please go to school. We need that.
Yeah.
But it's not that necessary. But you should always try it out.
Yeah.
And I still love school. It's fun. It's fun to go and like learn because some stuff is cool and you don't get that structure at home. I have a hard time with structure, so I have to really get myself down on my schedule. And when I used to when you work for someone, they tell you exactly what you need to do, what time. When you work for yourself, you get to do whatever the fuck you want, and that opens up a lot of procrastination.
Yes,
and me and my friend who also I have a lot of friends also do OF, and I feel like even though it's very easy, it is very easy. It's a blessed life, but I think it's easier to go to a job. Because they tell you exactly what to do.
Yeah.
When you are on your own, a lot of people wouldn't know what to do with their life if they didn't have to go to school and they didn't have a job. They would literally lose their fucking mind. Mm-hmm. My dad, for one, he's worked the same job since he was and whatever, he's old school. But I'm sorry, a lot of people wouldn't know what to do with their lives. And it's really difficult to sit and be like, what do I really like? What am I creating? That's where the real magic happens.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's why when people try to tell me it's not a real job, only feels I'm like, well, what the fuck do you do? I go to therapy and my therapist is very open about sexuality. She's like, you help people. There's a lot of people who are frustrated and they go on it's true.
It is. Not for nothing too. That's why a lot of people right after high school, married, kids, military job that they're gonna stay at 22. I'm like, did you guys even try? How are you already settled down? That's the thing. I also feel like one thing I've noticed about my peers is that a lot of them just want to emulate their parents. And that's what, to go back, just because my dad, iron worker, my grandpa was an iron worker, you know what I mean? I was never gonna be that. I wasn't, just because my grandpa did it doesn't mean I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like a lot of people see their parents who had kids young, who got married young, who had to settle down young, and they're like, well, that's what I have to do, so I'm going to do it. It's normal. But you said it. The hardest thing to do is not follow that path.
Yeah.
And to find your own purpose versus just doing what your parents thought was their purpose.
Yeah.
What do people think is your purpose? Because I feel like a lot of the times, especially in school, you kind of feel like you have to follow a certain pattern or path because that's what everyone else is doing. Going to school, if you don't go to college, you're like, oh, I'm gonna fall behind, all my peers are already in school. But I feel like that is also another thing people have to unlearn, that it's not competition. It's more just a solo race. What is your next dream or goal you want to achieve? Once for a lot of people it's a certain following or certain likes, whatever. Is there something that you want to do that it'll be okay, I achieved it and I'm at a better, a higher step in a way, you know?
I always have a million little goals going on. That's why I think it's hard for me to zone in on one. But right now, so I had my skit account and I grew it really fast, and I always goal with my skit account was always to be funny, borderline I have obviously a BBL, so it would work in my favor because then I could get people on OnlyFans, and then I was being funny, and I love making skits. I love being funny, so it was the best of both worlds. But I was in zone. I feel me and my friend, my best friend Sarah, we were both talking about we still want to do skits, and this is, I'm glad you asked that. As a woman, it's very difficult to be a funny woman. If you're, it's so easy to be hot. Women are just seen hot, and when you're seen also as an OnlyFans girl or IG model, you don't have any substance. That's what guys think. That's what people think. That's all you do. But I rarely know. My friends are rarely. Maybe I think it's because they're my friends. But I always tell them it's so difficult to be online and be funny because most every girl can do a little get ready with me, and I still do that content, but I try to borderline being real and sharing my experience with the girl content. So I'm focusing this year on my girl content because I was telling her, I was I wonder what would happen if we focused on our girl content, the influencer content, and then you do an experiment later on and think about how many people really saw you as just OF when you were narrowing down, because I already did the skit did it, and I figured out, how to do it, and now I'm interested in knowing how you can perceive your image, because everyone sees you as OF, but so when I started posting on my second account, you guys know the one I posted on English, I had 9% men, 9% women, and 89% men on my second account. I've been working on it for like 2-3 months now. No, I'm at 23% women.
Okay,
So
period.
I don't like to get too, I'm not about numbers, but when it comes to media, I look at numbers.
Yeah.
So I've been constantly and slowly, I've been noticing less and less men comment, and that's what I want to do now. Because obviously we have a podcast, me and Sarah, and it's always been about like women and sexuality and stuff. And while my OnlyFans is always going to be something good for me, I think like in the next 5 years, I'm going to wind down on like my sexual image, and I want to do more like entrepreneur stuff and see how that works for me. Because I was like, I don't know, I feel like I've been one of those people in the past before I had OnlyFans. I was super judgmental. That thing's like, oh, if she's an OnlyFans, like that's all she is. But like, no, that's not true. So that's why I'm doing that. I'm working on my account and seeing how far that will take me. Because a lot of people say that you don't get brand deals or you don't get far if you do OnlyFans. I think in the new age that's gonna change.
Yeah.
So I wanna like focus on that, and I'm still doing my skits, but I'm gonna do them simultaneously.
Going kind of back again to DL, queerness, I genuinely like am curious about this. So being a gay man, I have dabbled in DL-ness. Not myself, but like with DL men. I won't act as if, you know, I have it, I'm above it. Like, I know a lot of gay men who are like, my man, and I'm like, he'll never post you. Like, I don't know, he's not your man. And so I kind of wanted to ask, since it's such like a thing, for gay men, we're aware, right? We're like, okay, you're DL.
Mm-hmm.
As a, you know, cis-het women, you won't really know for sure if a guy is DL. If you found out, do you feel like that would hurt? How would you react to find out your man is DL? Would it hurt more if it's a man, or would you have preferred it was a woman? Is there a difference to you?
Oh my god, that's such a again, I always talk about this. I would prefer it was a guy, because then like, okay, I lie, like, no, like I already fuck with you, now we can be friends. We both I don't think that's an issue. It would hurt me more if it was a woman. I don't care. If he's gay, I would be like, okay, you're on Grindr, like, let's just, like, whatever. Okay, you could have just said that.
Yeah.
Like, I would be more betrayed, because, like, I wouldn't like to be lied to. But I wouldn't be, like, I wouldn't be upset. I always tell I don't know, I'm like literally challengers, bro. I always tell my boyfriends, I'm like, have you ever been with a man? Like, have you ever? Because I'm so, I'm like very, like, openly sexual. I have, like, a fantasy man. I'll never do it, okay? But it's, like, my darkest fantasy. Like, I want to eat. I want to do a bunch of crazy shit. I'm a very dominant woman. I can switch, but I have a strong personality. So it takes a man, you know. So I'm like, if I'm dominant, are you a bit? I don't know. I always have to question it. But if a man has this, you know, I think a good man will accept you. I think as I've gone to therapy and you heal, I choose better men for sure. But for sure, some of them have been DL 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. What you said about like, because you're such a dominant spirit, like, do you attract submissive? Because I think it's a complimentary thing, you know? Like, I know we talked about, like, just because a man does feminine things doesn't mean he's gay. In the same way, like, just because a man is more submissive doesn't mean he's gay. But I feel like there is a difference between, like, an F word and, like, just a metrosexual man, you know? Someone who's, like, in touch. But I like that also, that it wouldn't bother you as much. Because I know some women, they would rather their man cheat on them 40 different times with 40 different women than to find out that their man had even been with a guy. In terms of like bisexuality, like with a guy, like if somebody you're with told you that they had been with men in the past, would that kind of differ how you view them, both positively or negatively, or would it not matter?
I don't know. You know, in the past, I feel like I used to say it would bother me. I was thinking about that today, actually. Like, I was like, maybe we're gonna talk about like bisexuality. I feel like in the past I would say it used to bother me, but now that I've gotten older and like I've like tapped in, I think it wouldn't bother me as much. Maybe if they're like if I think from my experience with them that they're leading more onto like liking men, it would be an issue, because then I would feel kind of like, no, I'm my feminine, and that wouldn't make me feel comfortable. But if it had been women, honestly, it wouldn't bother me, because I'd rather you know that you don't like it, or like that you want to be with a woman right now, than you always wonder.
Yeah.
I think that would make me feel better. And for sure, I feel like I attract some metro type men because I'm so dominant. But, you know, in like sex life, it's like I can be submissive, but I'm a woman that like will tell you things. Like I'll be like, yeah, it looks fucking ugly. You know, not like that mean, but like I'm definitely like a dominant woman, and I need a man who can take that. So for sure, they're a little bit more metro.
Even though it's harsh, that doesn't mean it's not true. And for me, I'm such a big believer. Like, I'm not gonna be the friend or the partner who's gonna just co-sign your dumb stuff. Or like if I think you're doing something dumb, or like if you look dumb, I'm gonna tell you. And I've lost friendships because they don't want to hear that, but I'm gonna say it. And like I love that you can have that with men as well, because a lot of women they think they need to be like, oh, I'm so small and petite and readable, and like no, like stand up,
get the fuck up.
Yeah.
That's what I think now, like the relationship that I'm in now. It's so funny because like he would always tell, like when I was like starting to talk to him, I would like put all these things that I wanted him to do, like we weren't even dating. He was like, I don't know why you were telling me that, but I just like to put people through tests. It's something I do. I probably shouldn't do it. And he's like that with me too. My partner, he'll tell me things like, I don't like that, and then if I feel offended, and I will break down why I feel offended. You know, because for me, it's always like with therapy. It's a little bit easier to say what bothers me. For him, when I tell him something, sometimes I have to like digress, and then he tells me, I feel like sometimes. Like, I can't tell you things because you blow up but when you tell me something you don't want me to, so I have to kind of like take that, and I have been told that, so I kind of have to like, lower, like, because I try to kind of like micromanage him too much, so I try to like step back because I don't want to be micromanaged.
Yeah,
so
100%.
You always have to kind of like, it can be part of your personality, but when you're being borderline fucking rude and annoying, like you need to check yourself.
100%.
Like going back to what you said, that a lot of like men would rather not say anything. You know how you said, you like to tell your partners like, oh, this looks ugly and like that. I feel like, do you think that comes from like the confidence of being raised by like a man? Like you have to be outspoken. So that like confidence for your outspokenness, do you think that comes from having that relationship with your dad?
Ooh, that's what. Yes, my dad always had a lot of rage. Remember at the car, like he's been. I'm very patient, actually. My best friend's mom always telling me, she's like, "You're so patient." She's like, "Giselle never gets mad. Like we never see you mad." It's very hard to get me like upset because I was raised by my dad, who like was, oh my god, he was so much to deal with. So I learned to like not show my rage, but I take it out on different things. I'm definitely outspoken, and I think when it comes to like financial or like when a guy tries to control me too much. Sometimes it comes out wrong because I'm like, well, I don't need you, and so it's kind of like hyper independence that I do deal with that, and sometimes it's hard for me to lean on someone. And I had to tap into that in therapy where she was like, oh, it seems like you have a problem with being vulnerable. I was like, I don't think so, but, luckily now I'm dating someone that like he's very like understanding, and sometimes so like the other day I went to go fix my car and I needed a ride, and he was sleeping, and I didn't wake him up to take me. I just Ubered myself, and I came back, got food, and then he left to work, and he's like, what did you do? And I told him, and I was like, see, like, I don't ask you for rides, and like, I just go and figure out by myself. And he's like, well, I'm not going to stop asking you for a ride in my car. He's like, you chose to do that. He's like, you could have just woke me up. But that's when I catch myself, I'm like, oh my god, like, I hate relying on people. And so as a woman, like, sometimes you need to rely on a man, like in a relationship. So I slowly have to learn to do that because I'm like, oh, I don't want to. Like, I don't know. I like to be able to like deal with things on my own, but that doesn't always help me. You know? So yeah, I definitely dealt with that. In a way, it gives me a lot of confidence, and it's made me who I am. But it's also hurt me because now my dad would always tell me like, why are you going outside? Like, do you have money? And then I'd be like, no. And he'd be like, well, you shouldn't go outside. You don't have money. So he made me like very like, I don't know, like. I was always like super not material because my dad's not even materialistic. Just like I need to do it. Like, I must have it. Like, and I need to work for it. Yeah. And he gave me that, but it came with like a double-edged sword. Because then I'm like, well, I don't fucking need you, so you can get the fuck out. Like, I get that feeling when I'm angry, and I can't always be like that. I don't know. And women in our past, Mexican women, didn't have that choice. So to me, it's empowering.
Yeah, like sorry, but like going back to like your submissiveness, like also like to connect it to that, like. I feel like maybe that's why you're more dominant, because you are a dominant person. You had to be dominant with your life. You had to take it by the reins. So maybe that's why you like gravitate towards submissive men, because it's easier for you to like control them. But I feel like a fundamental part of the relationship is having equal footing. And I feel like now your current like boyfriend, I feel like he's leveling you out. You're like up here, but now he's like bringing you down to where the point where you both are. He's working on you in a way.
If I could also analyze your relationship, I also feel like what plays a part in that is you have more control when your foot is one in and one out the door, right?
Mhm.
Because if it gets bad, you could leave.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, to be in a committed relationship, you have to just accept it. You have to throw yourself in there, and so
Oh,
it's hard.
It's hard.
Yes.
I have commitment issues, and I've like it's weird because all the situations I'm in, like I always find a way to like make the situation deeper than it is. And I can never have a fucking one night stand. Everything's bigger than it is. I learned this when things start to get real. I always like leave because I'm like, oh my god, no, like that's too much. You know,
Surreal.
I have a lot of issues with privacy. Like I always been like that. I never even wanted to have an OnlyFans manager because I didn't want anyone looking into my stuff. I'm very weird. Like, I talked about this in therapy in my last session because my boyfriend was telling me that when he asked me questions, I shut him out. And you guys would become like, what do you mean you're always talking? I don't know why, but sometimes I just don't want to say it. Like if he asked me, what'd you do at Andrew's house? I'll be like, oh, nothing. And then he's like, oh no, like what'd you eat? And I'm like, I don't remember. Like I don't. I just like to be mysterious. I don't know why. And my therapist was like, yeah, that's like not okay. And so he has a really big problem with me being like that because I ask a really questions, but then I won't give anything.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been an issue. I didn't notice that I did it because he's not. I'm anxiously attached, and I think he is in a way too. He's like also both, but he sometimes diverts back and forth, and he's made me become avoidant. I've never been the avoidant, but he makes me be avoidant because he's so secure sometimes. Like he'll just answers the phone every time I call. I'm like, why do you answer the phone every time? And my therapist like, do you want someone to choose you? Like, I'm like, no, but I don't know. Like, I get frustrated or I cause problems just to like.
Maybe it's because like you feel like that's what you have to do, you know,
Yeah.
like
Play games.
you need the toxic guy, you know, the toxic
The
man.
toxico, yeah.
¿Qué estás haciendo?
Yeah.
¿Qué me contestas? You know, I feel like,
Yeah.
but it's just something that you have to like, in a way, like move past. Yeah.
Yeah. As an adult too, because like it's just like at one point it's not cute. You know?
Yes.
It's not cute.
Maybe when we were in high school.
Yes, or 19, 18, yeah.
It's
21, but like, yeah, we're approaching 45.
30, yeah.
I'm
like I'm pushing 30.
us.
Dude, no, yes. I feel like I'm very friendly. I make a lot of friends easy. Like I'm so talkative. Like if I want to hang out with someone, I'll message them my start plans. But they don't know me though. I don't. I'm always like they don't know me. I'm so mysterious. But it's true though. I only let people from here. And I remember I'm studying about my assistant. Like oh my god, like the situation.
Yes.
Like people are just so weird, and that's why like my friendships are been my friends for so long, and I've cut a lot of people that I've met in the from the start because they're weird, and I always feel like that's why I'm like if you need at least like 5 years to know someone. That's why that would happen to me too in my relationship where my boyfriend would do something. I'm like, well, I don't really know you. He's like, what do you mean? We've been like we know each other for a long time. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know you like that. Because I swear you don't know someone until and sometimes I have a lot of trauma. And it doesn't always come out in my friendships, but in my relationships it comes out a lot, and I don't want to explain. I'll start lashing out, being weird. I was like, I start arguing yesterday for no reason. But I can't explain. It's hard for me to explain because it's like, I don't know how I tell you. Like it's because like my mom left me. Like it's just so sensitive. I don't want to seem like a victim either. So sometimes like I'll just like burst out crying and like he's like, what's wrong? I like don't know what and I finally like I'm dating someone who like tries to understand me and I'm like, fuck you, like So I need to go to therapy. That's what I was talking about. I'm like, to be in a relationship and like to grow as an adult and to be a better friend and be a better person, but you need to seek help because at that point, like not everyone's gonna deal with you, babe. Like no.
Trillion.
I hate when people like think you're just gonna deal with them because that's how they are. No, we're not like.
I also want to say like I'm vocal about it. I have bipolar disorder. You talk about your BPD. And I feel like a lot of people, they get diagnosed and they think that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, like, oh, if they blow up in a friendship, they blow up in a relationship, well, I'm bipolar. And, like, that's supposed to be it. And that was okay me for a bit. And I lost so many friendships that, like, was devastating because I didn't put in the work. And, like, it sucks, but if you are dealing with a mental illness, you need to put in more work to maintain relationships because, I'm sorry, the whole I'm mentally ill trick card can only be pulled so many times before, like, I don't want to deal with you anymore then. Like, if it's always like this, so, like, I'm giving you your flowers and kudos that you're putting in that work. Because people who aren't even mentally ill, who still need it, don't go do it. Like, so, yeah.
No, yeah, it's true. And, like luckily, like, I have, like, really good friends and stuff, but I always try to, like, check. I always tell them, like, if you have a problem with me, please tell me. I'm like, because I'm not doing it on purpose, and even if you guys, when people tell me things about myself, I take criticism hard, but I'm always a person who I'm willing to, like, hear you, you know, because as adults, you know, you deserve to say why you feel, you know, I might not have done it on purpose, but it's so important for friendships to work. I mean, me and my best friend were, like, business partners. We work together, we've lived together. It puts a lot of strain on a friendship. So we've had to have a lot of difficult conversations, and now that I'm in a relationship, I've had to do the same thing. And sometimes I don't want to do it, and I'm like, guys, just give up. I don't, like, I can't, no one will ever love me. But it's like, if I don't do it, like, what am I going to do? Like, that when I have kids, I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, and then my child's like, that makes me so sad, you know? So, I don't know. I've always been, like, the black sheep of my family. Like, I used to go off on my dad. Like, I would tell him, I'm like, you blew up yesterday, you're going to do it tomorrow, and then you're going to act like everything's okay. I was like, we're not going to deal with you. I'm going to go off on you. He was sitting there like this. I'm like, you're really, like, really frustrating. Like, I'm not going to go off on him. And he would allow me to. Besides the fact that he would blow up, that always made me feel like I could speak up.
Yeah, you feel validated.
Because I would always go up and go up. I'm like, well, you did that, and you're going to do it again. I'm like, you're really annoying. You know, so, I don't know. I like that. I think it's okay to tell people what they did wrong.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000,000,000%. I don't understand, like, how people can view that as a bad thing. Like, I'm telling you, that's what I always say. Like, you have one awkward conversation to remove sometimes years of, like, resentment or weeks. Like, you just get it out of the way. It maybe makes a little wound. Some people get their feelings hurt, but then they heal, and then you move on, and you're better than you were before.
I feel like it's more like your initial reaction or actually building the courage to do it. Because, like awkward conversations, like, they're awkward, you know? So, I feel like, but it is a sign of maturity, you know, being able to communicate. Because if you don't say what's going on, how you feel, then no one's a mind reader, you know? They're not gonna know what you're thinking. So, communication, I think it's probably the biggest sign of maturity, you know? Because a lot of people will rather shut down and, like you guys said, like, cut people off or end friendships, then talk, you know? Even
a text, you know, for me, it's always been an issue that I can't say things to people's face. I'm like, when they get mad at me, and don't you feel like growing up Latino, people pleasing is such a common thing?
Oh my god, dude.
And it sucks, and then we have to fucking do it there in our life. And, like, I do it all the time with, like, when people owe me money. It's like, it shows up for me. I'm like, great, you're like that now. I'm like that because of you, you know? It's a huge issue. So for me, I sometimes couldn't tell people things to their face. You know, one time we had a conversation about that, like, and it's cost me a lot of friendships and a lot of things too, but sometimes I just have to shoot a text. I can't say it in people's face because I'm just getting so nervous. Not even that about, like, what I'm going to say, but I don't want to make them mad or hurt their feelings. I don't know, I feel like I'm going to hurt their feelings. So I would just shoot them a text and, like, their business stuff, you know, just start by texting people. She was like, but just don't get used to always texting people because then every time you hit, she, like, wigged me when she told me this. She's like, if you keep just texting everyone after the hangout, people are going to be like, oh, is she going to blow up on text again after? And I was like, she's like, so it's fine if you're doing that now, but learn to say that in the moment. Because if you're complaining about someone not being communicative with you, when have you been communicative? So
now she collected.
I'm like, me on the floor. I was like, and so she really, you know, I still text, I'm not gonna lie, but when I started being like that, it made my, you know, I still feel like sometimes I don't have the best communication with my friends and with everyone, but I will go off on a text. I'm like, well, I will go off on a text because it's like, it's so sad to just hang out and not talk about things, you know, because you feel it, and that's how we grow up in Mexican families. Like, oh, the big elephant in the room, and it'll be horrible things in Mexican families. Like, someone stole someone's, like, money. It'll be like someone got hit, like, a violence, and they're like, listen, like, let's just eat. I hate that. So I don't want to cultivate that as an adult.
Yeah, that's so funny. That reminds me so much of my dad, because he's the type where if he gets upset, he just doesn't talk, right? And I'll never forget one time, my dad was just being whatever. This was high school. I was like 15, and we didn't have the best relationship. And he drops me off all mad, right? And so, like, I sent a text to my friend, and I'm like, my dad's being such a bitch, you know? He's being so annoying, right? Send. I look. I sent it to him. I literally sent it to him, dude. I was like, freaking out. I just got to the hang, and my friend's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "My dad's gonna kill me." Blah blah blah. Right. Later it comes. He picks me up. He doesn't say anything. 3 days pass. I didn't do the dishes right. I'm like, "Oh," and he's like, "You always do this, and I know you did. You talk bad behind my back." And I was like, brought it up out of nowhere. I was like, "Ah!" Like if he picked me up, we could have had like a good conversation. Like, "So Drew, like, why did you send that?" Or but it came out randomly during a blow up, and that's not good communication too. Because I feel like I was also dating somebody who I would bring up an issue, and they only brought up issues they had with me after I brought up an issue with them. So I'd be like, "I don't like that you do this." Like, "Well, I don't like that you do that." And then and they're like, "You never apologize when you do that, so why should I?" I'm like, "But I'm bringing this up first. Like, I'm trying to communicate, and like, you can't just retort it and try and be like, no, like that's not how that works."
That's happened to me too. Like where it's like sometimes when you're a person who has the ability to be more open, then people will use that as a moment. And I've also talked in therapy about that. I'm like, because then it's like now you've turned something that's my feelings and you've switched it to about you again.
Yeah.
And that can be very frustrating for a person who's trying to like tell you how they feel. But you just have to be understanding, like, maybe they're not able to. So if I can be a catalyst for you to speak, that's fine. But just know that it's fine, and if you say, "I would like to hear," you can tell me what I don't like. But it's like if every time I tell you something, you're telling me something, maybe use your own time to tell me.
Ooh.
Okay, like that does happen too. It's like we'll say like our icks, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "I'm not like a billion things." I'm like, "Okay."
Whoa.
Relax. So, but it's okay if you guys are both talking. I know what you mean though, where it's like you made it by yourself again.
Yes, and you just described like I was dating that man for 6 months. Like you just described 6 months of dating where it was like every time I took an opportunity to be vulnerable and to be like, "Hey, I don't like that you do this," it's turned on me, and I'm just like, why do I want to deal with that? Like honestly, the moral of this episode, because we'll always have like bottom line, learn to communicate. Honestly, like it's key to relationships with friends, with partners, with your family, with work. Exactly, like say how you feel. Say that shit with your chest, like.
And it's free.
Yes, that's so true.
Like everyone has, but no one likes to like make it better.
Yeah.
Like I'm like that too because I'm very like late to appointments or like I forget things a lot. I'm very forgetful, and whenever I write back to my therapist, I'll be like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." Like I'm always writing like a billion things, and then she'll tell me like, you don't always have to apologize. Just communicate within a time frame, and then if the person's upset, then my therapist is gonna tell me like, "Hey, you kind of didn't answer on time, so we moved on without you." And I'm like, "Oh," but that's how people learn.
Yeah.
Instead of shunning me, like you're always fucking on. That's not the appropriate way, and that's how I've learned too. I'm like, you know what? I can be a little bit late, so I just let people know. Let people know.
You're literally giving me free therapy. I'm like, because we're having similar issues, so I'm like, wow, write that down. And they're all getting free therapy too.
But I'm just because I say every day, I don't always take it. I'm always late. Like I literally, one time, like my girlfriend was waiting for me for 30 minutes, and I was on live. And he was like, "Why are you on live?"
I'm watching the live. It's like, "Babe, I'm outside."
I get like manic. I swear, I get manic. I'm like, I start going off, and I forget, and he thinks I'm doing it on purpose. Like I'm lagging on purpose, and I'm like, I just don't get it. I'm like, you don't get it. But he feels very hurt. He's like, "You don't respect my time," and I'm like, I had to really like think about that. It's a constant issue because I always assume that people are just gonna wait for me. I'm like, and that's not okay. That's not okay. It's inconsiderate, and he tells me that all the time. And I feel like it's one of the issues. It's like a breaking point. So I have to like
work on that.
I have to work on that and just be more like have more time management.
But you need someone that is willing to like work on your issues with you. Like in him, instead of getting all mad, "Oh, why are you taking forever?" He's like, "Hey, I'm waiting for you."
Yeah.
You need that, like, maybe not a gentle approach, but somewhat of an approach.
Yeah.
For that.
I've always been the biggest thing of like explaining why you're hurt is better than trying to hurt the other person.
Yes.
Because my family does that a lot where like they're hurt so they'll say something to hurt you back versus being like, "Hey, that hurt me because you're being immature. Like I would never do that to you, so why are you doing?" But instead of doing that, they're like, "Oh, and now I'm gonna bring up something to hurt you."
Like unheard of.
Yeah.
Killer.
Literally, like, shame.
No, yeah, and for sure, like when you suffer with mental illness, I feel like sometimes you need people to be a little bit more gentle with you.
Yes.
Anything will send you into a spiral.
What I will never forget, like, it's gonna sound bad, but I had a roommate who told me one time, because I was having issues, and he goes like, "Well, honestly, like, you're crazy. Like, so I get it. And that, like, literally, it may sound so bad, but that validated me so hard because I felt like so many people just were like, oh, he's bipolar, and like, but will still hold me to the expectations of someone who's like doesn't suffer from that. So it might have sounded crazy out loud, but him being like, I know you're crazy, like it's okay. I'm like, thank you. Like, yes, I am. Oh my god,
That's so funny.
All right, so I feel like that's a good natural wrapping point for today's episode.
Thank you so much, Giselle, for being our first guest.
We literally couldn't have had it anyway. When we thought about like we wanted to do guests, we were like, Giselle.
Yeah, she's gonna be the first one.
The first one if we could.
Yeah, because you've done so much for the show, you know, and for us, so we just like wanted to pay it back a little bit, you know, by having you here with us and shouting you out, you know, just showing the people why we're here, one of the reasons why we're here.
Genuinely.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. And I can't wait till you guys do your like 100th episode. I think.
We're gonna get there. Don't worry.
Yeah,
We'll get some like strippers. And
yeah, why was I gonna say that? Literally, I'm like, we all dance.
Maybe some Mel ones.
Yeah, you started. Well,
Mel
see. Yeah.
But thank you so much, guys, for tuning in this week.
Yes.
I'm Leo.
I'm Drew.
So,
And this was the DO Show.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Bye.
a little skinny one.
Yes. Well, he's not so skinny. That's a good.
Like, bye.